Well, she appeared on the first season of Masterchef, finishing fourth. She has her own TV show, Everyday Gourmet, and she's the author of 4 fantastic books. I'm looking forward to this chat because I love my food. Justine Schofield, thank you for joining us for Chats with Pav.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
It's an absolute pleasure. You're in Brisbane at the moment with all this COVID business going around continuously. What's your world look like just straight off the top at the moment about getting to the locations where you need to film all your TV shows, but also just your business in general? How has it affected you?
Yeah, look, I really can't complain compared to a lot of people that I know that are doing it tough, in the restaurant world and friends and family that are sort of stuck in COVID, whether it was in Melbourne or Sydney. I feel very lucky because I've just finished Everyday Gourmet in Melbourne and we did have that 2-3 week lockdown. But then was lucky enough to escape that. We wrapped and I was actually on my way to Sydney for work for a couple of weeks and then at the last hour just changed my mind and came up to Brizzy. So I'm in Brizzy and I can't complain because it's beautiful weather and it's open and it's yeah. So I'm very lucky to be up here at the moment and thinking of all my poor Sydney friends that are stuck in lockdown.
Yeah, it's a bit like that. We all feel for everyone affected by it. How did foods and cooking such a big part of your life? Where did your inspiration come from and how did you get involved in cooking?
Well, I guess it started at a really early age. I was quite obsessed, obviously with eating, like many kids, but I was very intrigued with what mum would be doing in the kitchen with that French background. Food's incredibly important. It's not just to eat, it's always for the pleasure. And at breakfast, we're thinking about what to have for lunch. And at lunch, we're thinking about, oh, what are we going to have for dinner? And whether there was one person at one person at home or 20 people coming over, the table was always set and there was always an event, because I guess for us food was all about bringing someone together, whether 2 people or 20 people, talking about the day and watching mum take simple things like eggs and spinach and turn it into something fantastic. We'd have nothing in the fridge and she'd be able to go eggs, a bit of milk, a bit of flour. Oh, here's a souffle for dinner tonight. And I would always, that was what we grew up with because she was such a fantastic cook. So watching mum in the kitchen and watching my maternal grandmother, I was sent from a young age to France. Even I just remember being the age of 10 and being put on an aeroplane alone, and an air hostess would have to look after me and ship me off to France for a month to be with my grandmother. And I think that's why I did form quite a strong bond with her. And it was because she was also a great cook. So we had that in common. And I was very happy to go along to the markets, see her sit on the back porch, pluck a pigeon for the pot and things like that. And it was quite a thrill for me, I guess.
10,000 hours of practice. It's a bit of a common theme for people that become experts in their field. It sounds like early days in the kitchen with your mum or your grandma. And then tell us about going to France and having that rich experience in another culture. That must have been firstly fantastic, but secondly really interesting in terms of building your skills for becoming a chef.
Yeah, absolutely. And, my grandmother, it was always about the old school French style, peasant style food. And I think that's why I'm passionate about it now. So sometimes people don't resonate with that, those old school French boeuf bourguignons, those slow cooked stews that I just absolutely adore with just the simplest of ingredients. And going over there, I felt like a second home always. From a young age, mum would always be, don't forget where I come from. And I think it was important for her because she knew she established herself in Australia, but she wants to make sure that we always remember that. And I think that's where the food part comes into the heritage and remembering that is the smells. For me, walking into my mother's house when she's making my grandmother's pot au feu, which is simply it's a pot roast if you think about it, the French style. It reminds me of my grandmother. And that smell also reminds my mother of her grandmother. So yes, you can look at photos all you like, but if you want that true essence of memory, I think for us, it's very much coming through food, and keeping that French part of us alive. And, I set the table even for just my partner and I, he just doesn't understand sometimes. I sit there and I put, the French table, it's there's bread on the table. We finish sometimes with cheese. We go through the courses. A lot of people don't understand that side of me. They think that's only for special occasions. But for me, it's like, well, it's a ritual, and it's something that's important for me, and it's something that I feel I want to show to my children one day if I ever have children.
Looking forward to getting to Brisbane and sitting around the dinner table with you.
Yeah, you're invited. I love people coming over.
I'm getting hungry already. I'm just thinking about it. I remember going to France probably about 10 years ago now, and we spent a whole period of time, my wife and I, basically going from the south of France, driving right through the middle, spending a lot of time in Burgundy, going to lots of the different villages and vineyards, and then sort of making our way up through to Champagne and then into Paris. It was an awesome couple of weeks, and I'm so glad we took that time just to meander through. But the food and the smells that you talk about, and the little villages, and it's just such a great area of the world. And that in Italy, I think, are the two incredible sort of cuisines and fantastic just experiences if you get to have a period of your life there. It's I wish I had more time there. It's a beautiful part of the world.
Oh yeah, and you say Italy. I mean, Italy's another place where, if I didn't have that French background, I would want to be Italian because it is another place that is just phenomenal when it comes to the food and just everything, just the way of life is enchanting.
So France is obviously, and Australia, key influences in your cooking, and so too your mum and your grandma. But what about new skills? How do you keep evolving and learning and getting new recipes? Because I know myself in the kitchen, or us at home, it's like you've sort of got your stock standard meals every week. You kind of just feel like they're on rotation. What about you? What inspires you to come up with new dishes?
Absolutely. Such a great question. And it is one of those things where before COVID, every time I would finish the 90 episodes of Everyday Gourmet, I would get on the plane and I would go somewhere, whether it would be Asia or America, or of course, majority of the time it was Europe, because I'm obsessed with going over there because that's where the food I love. And I would go and do 2 to 3 weeks, wherever it was. The last time it was in Tuscany. I met this old lady that was just absolutely just opened her arms to me and let me come into her place, and I would work and she would give me free accommodation. And it was just one of those amazing experiences where I would absorb absolutely everything, from making a simple pesto to how she would peel her potatoes and go into the garden and see how she would garden, because everything came from her garden. I think I learned so much, and it was like a sponge over there. So to answer that question is, I would most of the time travel and go and learn. The other thing is, a lot of my friends who are chefs, I watch what they're doing in their kitchens and in their homes. And, you look on social media too, the world is so close now with that, where you can be inspired from the top restaurants to, the simplest of little enotecas to see what people are cooking and taking inspiration from that and going, oh, that's a great idea. I would never think to put prunes with rabbit. Okay, let me take that and see what I can do at home. And for me, I desperately need new ideas all the time, because every year I need to find 300 new recipes. So I am constantly trying to learn, and I learn from just everywhere, different books, going to restaurants, tasting things. Some things are just absolutely terrible, but then you go, they didn't execute it, but I love that flavor combination, and I'm going to go home now and try to recreate my version. So you also just take inspiration from colors that you see, going into nature, the smells, all sorts of things. And I've also got lots of old books from my grandmothers, and I would take them and go, oh, that is so old school, but let's revive it and let's do, a coronation chicken sandwich. Why not? I mean, and it can be delicious if you sort of modernize it a little.
I made paella last night, and it's well
Oh.
famous in our household, at least. My kids eat it and my wife enjoys it. So maybe I can share some information with you about my world famous in my family's household paella at some
Oh,
point.
I love it. How do you make it?
Masterchef, tell
Yep.
me, what was your motive going in? Can you remember back about, okay, this is just a great experience, I want to learn, or was it, hey, you know what, this could be a great platform to be able to excel and put me into what I love doing, cooking, and potentially some TV opportunities and a career?
So this was a very long time, probably about 13 years ago. And it was the first MasterChef. I didn't even have Foxtel back then, and I still don't. But like back then, you would be able to. There was a MasterChef UK version. A friend showed me it, and she said, "This is coming to Australia. You should do this. You're a great cook." I was selling security cameras at the time, and may I say, I didn't sell many at all, because if I could sell tomatoes, fantastic, but selling security cameras is a different ballgame. And yeah, so she said you should do this, and it was one of those shows where it was really about the skill. Cook. If you cook well, you get to stay. If you don't cook well, you're out. And I felt like there was a little bit of a fire in my belly. I'm like, oh, I like the idea of this, because it wasn't about your personal life or any of that reality show. It was about purely a skill. And I just was like, okay, well, I don't like this. One thing that I'm really passionate about is food, eating it and cooking it. I would make any excuse to cook for friends, family, work colleagues, you name it. So I tried out, and a friend of mine, I actually call him my mentor, Pedro, a very, very close friend of mine. I would sometimes go on catering jobs with him, and I'd be doing the dishes, but I would be always obsessed and watching him in the kitchen and how he could cook. So he was like, you know what, Just, you've got a bit of a skill there, go for it. Absolutely try out. So all it took was a little bit of that motivation, and friends going, try out for it. What have you got to lose? You're 23, go for it. And I did. And the rest is history. Went through one. There was quite a lot of things that you need to jump through, a lot of hoops to jump through.
Well, talk us. I'm interested in that. What does that look
Yeah.
like? What are the things you have to do?
Well, it started with you had to cook one cold dish, so have everything prepared and plate up in front of the judges, and not those judges. It was judges, separate food judges, and that took all day to get through. Then the next one was to cook a hot dish in front of the actual judges. And then after that, there was another round of top 50. So if you made it through top 50, then you had to cook for a full week. And even then, I think it was top 28 maybe people. And then 8 were knocked off. And then we actually went into the house with complete strangers. And 6 months later, we came out the other side. So it was quite a big ordeal to get in. They were really looking for specific people and characters and cooking skills to go into it. And I'm not really one of those risk takers, so to speak, but MasterChef really brought me out of my shell. I wasn't that confident person at all, but going in, not being in your comfort zone and trying something new was totally foreign to me, and it worked to my advantage. It was great to sort of do that. And I think that's what little kids ask me all the time. And I'm like, just do it. You got nothing to lose. And being out of your comfort zone is one of the greatest things you possibly can do, because you'd be surprised of what can come out of it. I mean, you have 10 minutes on the clock to create something. It seems impossible, but when you're given a certain amount of ingredients and a time frame and you focus, it's incredible what you can come up with. Yeah.
Humans can adapt very well, and we accept challenge pretty well generally. So yeah, get comfortable being uncomfortable is not a bad a little way to think of it. So and I remember back to those early seasons of MasterChef, and lots of the names come to my mind straight away, because the early season was all this, wow, how cool is this? Live sort of cooking, it's cutthroat, well produced TV. It's quite enthralling. So it's now propelled you. I think you finished fourth in that first season from memory, and it propelled you to this platform of your show, Everyday Gourmet, and into an author of 4 books. What's that been like, and how resilient have you had to be through that period? Given it's TV, it's cutthroat, there's a lot of uncertainty, and as a steady type of career, it can be quite risky.
Yeah, absolutely could. But I think I went in with no expectations, and I didn't go into into MasterChef wanting this big TV career. Far from it. I wanted to get out. I wanted to start a little French bistro. And if that didn't happen, because naively, coming out 23, this is what I want. But to open a restaurant is cutthroat, and it is very hard and a big investment. So I started a catering business and did that for 2 years. And then an opportunity came to me, which I still was hesitant. I'll never forget this. I was actually doing work experience at Aria in Sydney with Matt Moran, who's a close friend of mine now. And I said, look, I've been offered this opportunity to start a TV show. They want me to be the host and teach people how to cook on TV at 4 o'clock. That's Huey. That's where Huey, I grew up watching Huey because that's all the shows we had growing up. Only Huey at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. I'd come home and watch Huey. And I said, but I don't want to do that. Who's going to watch me? I mean, I'm just a cook. I'm not a chef. Who wants to learn off me? I prefer just to do my work experience here, and hopefully you'll give me a job in a couple of months, Matty Moran. He said, listen, go and do this show. Just give it a crack. It might not work. You might only get one season, but the kitchen will always be here for you. Don't say no to an opportunity like that. So it was because of him that I went, all right, let's just try it. And I think I went in with this very relaxed, no pressure, be yourself, teach people what you know how to cook, which is very simple food. And I think that's where it worked for me. It was, I didn't go in trying to be something I'm not. This is who I am. I'm very happy to be that girl that teaches you how to poach eggs over and over again until you know how to cook the most perfect poached egg. Because I get the thrill of that. When people come up to me on the streets and say, oh, Just, thank you so much for showing me how to just simply cook that pasta. I never thought to toss my pasta through the sauce. It tastes so much better. That is just such a thrill, a basic thrill. You know, it's those little things that I'm very happy to hero and not be the chef, because I get chefs to come on the show and they teach me the technical things. I'm happy to be that 4 o'clock slot cook that teaches people what to cook for dinner tonight, for the families, for the couples, for the singles, you name it, for the grandmas too.
And it's, I think that authenticity and that kind of care, that sense of just having a go and seeing where it develops is a great thing. It's into its 11th season now. You filmed over 1,000 episodes, and you have a new season coming up as we speak.
Yes, season 11. Who would have thought? Even season 10 was a bit of a wow moment, and going into season 11, I'm just the most grateful person out there, because it is something that I love to do. I know what it feels like to be in a job that I don't like and you've got to work, but then to be able to push yourself and try to find something you love and then finally nail it is just the most thrilling experience. And I am very grateful for the opportunity, and I just love teaching people how to cook, and I just love going into work and I have a great crew around me, and we just cook all day, and I'll go home, I also cook. It's an obsession. What can I say? And I just really enjoy it. Yeah.
How do you go filming? Because so I obviously work in live television, and that's very, it's very to the point and to the minute. Quite well, obviously, I assume you sort of cook something and then it's the old, oh, here's what I prepared earlier kind of scenario. How does that work? What sort of long days are we talking? How heavily produced is it, or do you try to be as natural and as live as you can?
Yeah, we try to be as natural and as live as we can. Of course, it has to be edited down. Something could take me an hour, but I've only got 4 minutes on TV to show that, because it's a half an hour slot. So it is edited, and we've got amazing editors. So I am allowed to make mistakes here and there. But it is still very natural. No auto cue or anything like that, because that just wouldn't feel real.
Yeah.
I must say, when anytime I have to use an auto cue, if I'm doing a different style of filming, I crumble. I'm like, hello, my name is Justine. So I take my hat off to any journalist out there that has to read off. A lot of my friends who are journalists, they do that. I'm like, how do you look so natural doing that? And they say the same to me. How do you do it without having the words there? And it's just, well, when you're cooking something, the passion will come out if you love what you do.
Yeah.
And for me, cooking a simple soup is quite fun, and I'm very happy to show it over and over again.
You've worked, at Pickstar, we work with brands and commercial opportunities for our talent. Clearly, we started in sport, but we're doing lots of different things now with comedians, business people, and chefs, and so on and so forth. You've worked with a number of different brands over the period. Tell us about some of those engagements and what you look for in a partner when you, as the talent, are looking to engage with the brand for a commercial opportunity.
Yeah, I think I sat down maybe a couple of years ago and I was working with lots of different style of brands, and I put down my sort of blue sky, if you like, of what I am really passionate about, and where I want to, what I want to show off. And for me, it came back down to what we started our conversation about, that French heritage that I am so passionate about. So I was very lucky to be able to sometimes approach, and they would also approach me, and it would just be whatever it takes to get it across the line, because companies like Tefal, a French, very good quality, small appliances and cookware, Lanson Champagne, Fromager Dauphinois, cheese coming. Can you believe it? I get to work with a cheese company. My favorite cheese growing up was Fromager Dauphinois, and I get to work with them now. It's a tough gig, I tell you. I just love that we've been able to entwine them together. And for me to be able to show Australia these French brands that I am so passionate about. If there's something that I go, would I use that? I definitely just don't go near it. So I'm very true to that. And I think there's success in that when you try not to take or go on the other path of let's just do this for quick cash or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Trying to really stay true to yourself with brands that you do actually use and that you are passionate about, is something that I've been quite, has been quite important to me from the beginning. Yeah.
I think that's a bit of a misnomer, or something that the community or commercial people out there don't quite understand, is that it's not just the budget that will attract a talent or someone that might want to align themselves with a brand. It's about, as you said, what they really value, what they are aligned to. It's about sometimes the location or their availability. So some of the things that aren't necessarily taken into consideration when someone's trying to find a Justine to promote their brand. It's a really important alignment for you. What about food, the food aspect? You know, I guess we talk about how much that can connect a family or a group of people when you have it around a dinner table. I guess that element of connection with a brand and having you as a bit of a pillar is also something that's interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that a lot of the brands do love the way that I want to show off food and the way of eating and how I do eat. It's all about balance. You know, for me, I'm not that healthy person, but I'm that wholesome cook, which is in my eyes healthy. So you could go anyway. I could definitely, I'm very happy to sometimes promote cheese and champagne and rosé and red wine. But I'm also happy to promote other things where it is about balance. Vitamins, I take my vitamins every day. I do my exercise. So there is also that side of me. And I think that's where the word wholesome comes into it, because I'm not one direction. I'm not all about, eating quinoa. I love quinoa, by the way, but like it's not all about that. It's all about balance. And for me, that's always been such a crucial thing, where making sure being balanced is my way of thinking and the way that I run my life. Yeah.
It's a great way of approaching it. I know now, having been retired for almost 5-6 years, staying fit and healthy, like keeping moving, is so important. Staying fit is, but also having a bit of fun with your food, and having a binge on some chocolate or some cake or some wine and all that. It's actually okay, as long as you, as you're saying, have it in balance with everything else in your life. It's a really
exactly. Like my Francoise would say, everything in moderation, and you can have anything. It's very important.
I love that. That's good. Now, a little birdie tells me you are following the AFL pretty closely these days. Why is that, and who are you following?
Never forget, I'm still Swannies through and through, okay? Even though my partner played for West Coast and the Lions. I mean, I do have a little soft spot for the Lions. I'm very sad. Eric's one of my favourite players. He did his knee yesterday. I saw that, or the day before. Sydney Swans all the way through. So my partner, he doesn't really like that. But he's got to learn to live with it.
I get the sense he's in the background lurking somewhere. So,
you be careful what you say to Pav. No, he said to say hi, by the way.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess your kind of parting messages for aspiring cooks or people that want to land a TV gig, what would you say to them about how to go about their approach to cooking great food, but potentially, having a long and successful career in TV and the media?
Yeah, I think my biggest thing, and I do get it a lot of people that have been on MasterChef ask me, what can I do to get my own show? And that right there is the problem. It's making sure that you don't put all your eggs in one basket and focus on that. If you make sure you always have a backup, or find also other passions and still in the food world, but not focus just on that, then sometimes it will just come. Oh, maybe that sounds too easy, but to avoid disappointment, because sometimes that will happen, is to make sure that you see the food. If you love being in food, make sure you go and work in restaurants, do work experience, upskill, and not just focus on being in TV, because TV is not. There are so many different ways that you can really show off food, not just on TV. There's so many different ways. Writing a cookbook, starting a blog, working in a restaurant. Restaurants need chefs. It is the hardest job. It is a very important job. It's a beautiful job, and that's, for me, is always one of those things that I have sort of in the back of me. I just would love to spend a bit more time in the kitchen, on that side of things, because I think that's where I lack. So if you're not being on TV right now, go and work in the restaurants. Have a crack at that, because restaurants are desperate for workers at the moment in Australia.
What are you, it's approaching lunchtime. What are you having for lunch today?
Well, I actually made the most amazing slow cooked beef ragu last night. So I have leftovers, and I love cold pasta. There, I said
Oh,
it.
okay, and what's
Yeah.
for tonight then? Have you got, did you?
Tonight, well, so if we talk about balance, so if we had a really heavy pasta ragu for Sunday night, I always start my week with no meat on a Monday and a Tuesday, and it's going to be a simple soup. We've got lots of old veg. I know it sounds so boring. You're like, oh, I thought you were going to say something like steak, chips, béarnaise, Justine. Okay, that's for Friday, but today is the beginning of the week, so I start it with a soup.
Great. That sounds great. Well, it sounds very appetizing, both lunch and dinner.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for spending a little bit of time with us today. Been really fascinated to hear about your history, your heritage, linking it back to France, and how your mum and your family have inspired you to cook, and your journey through what is pretty challenging environment, TV, but sort of what your core traits are, or what you really value, and how you tie that to not only who you partner with your brands, but how your authenticity comes through with your cooking. It's been really enjoyable to have a chat with you. Of course, you can book Justine on Pickstar.pro on any opportunity. I'm actually thinking about booking her now for a dinner at some point, coming around and having.
I thought you were cooking me paella.
Paella. I'll do paella. Yeah, how do you say paella, or how do you say?
I say paella because I don't know. Anytime I'm with a Spanish person, they say the Spaniards go paella. But you know what? In Australia, if we want to say paella, why not?
Well, either way, I'm going to cook that Spanish dish that starts with P at some point. If I ever get to Brisbane and we can get through this. Really enjoyed having a chat with you. Thank you for spending some time with us today.
Cheers. Thank you.